The Oldenburg sails regularly from Bideford and Ilfracombe to the island of Lundy, just over 20 miles out into the Bristol Channel. And for the 200 or so passengers on board, there's a very cheerful welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome on the Oldenburg. Nice fine morning. We expect the crossing to be as it is now, nice and smooth. We've got a buffet in our lower saloon, so people who want a cup of tea or a cup of coffee this morning or a snack, then pop along to the buffet that's in the lower saloon. Through the doors on the main deck, down the steps into the lower saloon.
Well, the journey to Lundy and the Oldenburg takes a little bit over 2 hours, and so the master, Denver Scoynes, and his crew thought this would be a perfect opportunity for me to try one of the local culinary delicacies. It's something that they were all brought up on, and it is called laver. Now, the word probably comes from the French laver, which is to wash, because washing is a very important part of its preparation. You see, laver is a seaweed that you can pick up on the coast along this part of North Devon, and you have to wash it at least half a dozen to a dozen times before you begin to cook it to make sure that you get all the sand and the grit out of it. You then cook it in boiling water with just a little dash of vinegar for anything up to about 5 hours, and it comes out looking like this. I suppose if I'm generous, I could say it's looks a little bit like spinach, only much darker and considerably more slimy. You eat it apparently when it's just been heated through or fried in bacon fat and served as it is here with a little bit of bacon. Now, this is genuinely the very, very first time I've ever tried this stuff. I'm going to like this, aren't I, Denver? I think. It's not that bad, actually. It's sort of... Actually, it's more like very limp lettuce with an awful lot of vinegar. I think you could get an appetite for it. The Oldenburg doesn't just bring day trippers, she also brings essential supplies to the island. And some of the people she's brought over have come for a long holiday to get away from the stresses and strains of everyday life. I wonder if they knew there was a 400-foot climb involved. Lundy is roughly 3 miles long and half a mile wide. Over the centuries, it's had many owners, and it's also been the haunt of pirates and smugglers. But in 1925, it was bought by Martin Coles Harman, who developed it as a haven for wildlife, in particular the puffin. And it was the old Viking word for puffin, lund, which gave the island its name. Then, in 1969, it was purchased by the National Trust with help from the philanthropist Jack Hayward. It could now be opened up to the public, and the Landmark Trust agreed to administer it for 60 years. They've converted 18 dwellings into holiday cottages. This very unusual one is on the site of the old castle, which was built by Henry III in 1243, after he'd gained possession of Lundy from the villainous Marisco family. There's even a hotel here, which can accommodate a dozen guests. The only village on the island is home for the 20 permanent residents who do the farming and look after the needs of the visitors. And the focal point of Lundy for residents and visitors alike is the building that houses the general store and the tavern. Cuddly puffins are amongst the souvenirs that you can buy here. But as John Puddy, the island's agent, points out, you can buy them on stamps too. And Lundy has a very distinguished philatelic history.
Well, the Lundy stamps have been around for quite a long time. In fact, the Lundy Postal Service is the oldest in the world, as far as I'm aware. And they were produced basically because the GPO refused to or declined to carry mail from Lundy to the mainland. So the owners of the island actually produced their own stamps for carriage to the mainland.
They carry on their face at the moment the famous Lundy puffin, don't they?
Yes, that's right. It dates back to the puffin coinage, and the stamps are not in pence or pounds, they're in puffins. So we have a 21 puffin stamp, 22 puffin, depending on the sort of postal rate at the time. The puffinage is a coinage which was used by the Harmon family in the 20s when they produced their own coins and their own stamps. And a puffin coin was the equivalent of a penny, or one puffin was equal to 1 penny in those days.
And on those coins we see not the Queen's head, as we would expect, but Mr. Harmon's.
Well, of course, Mr. Harmon produced these coins himself and obviously wished to see himself on the coin. But unfortunately, it was a very illegal operation and didn't last very long. And so, in fact, the coins are now quite collectible.
And you've had special issues as well. You have some lovely ones there in front of you. Tell us about them.
Yeah, so from time to time we have special issues. We've got a Christmas issue here, and in 1986 Lundy was designated the first statutory marine reserve in the country, and we produced some very attractive stamps for that occasion, depicting what you would actually see if you were swimming underwater around Lundy.
The reason Lundy became this country's first statutory marine reserve is that it has an unusually large variety of underwater habitats, ranging from steep cliffs, boulder slopes and sand-filled gullies to large flat areas of mud and gravel. Added to this, the island is bathed by warm currents from the south, and so you can find here some species you would normally only expect to find in warmer waters, like the Mediterranean. The reserve stretches out for a mile all the way round the island and has